Just before I start, to let people know that the full report's been published on the DT Hub today, and also as an opportunity for members of the Gemini call, there is an associated Power BI report. So that's available to you all by request, and we'll share some details in the chat about how to request access to that. Just to start at the beginning, sort of level set and let you all know what the Smart Infrastructure Index is if you've not heard about it before. It was developed from Project 13 to measure the digital maturity of asset owners and their wider supply chains. Organisations that have completed the index represent over 40% of the UK national infrastructure and construction pipeline. So that it provides a holistic view of digital maturity across 7 categories. Obviously, that range of responses to the core Smart Infrastructure Index provides a very strong baseline across those categories. So what were the DT Hub's objectives of utilising the Smart Infrastructure Index? Ultimately, we wanted to better understand our community and the maturity in relation to both digital transformation, which is kind of covered in that core Smart Infrastructure Index question set, and then digital twins, which I'll kind of go on to in a minute. We wanted to look at the relationships between digital transformation and digital twins, and then to be able to compare and contrast digital twin hub members with those broader index metrics, so those industry baselines that exist because of that range of completion through the infrastructure and building client group. We wanted to be able to draw comparisons between the digital twin hub asset owner operator members and the wider community, so that's our innovators and our academics. We wanted to understand progress, particularly among the asset owner operators who completed this digital twin hub extension to the Smart Infrastructure Index last year, and then to inform future areas of focus for the DT Hub and the National Digital Twin Programme. So looking at the DT Hub survey, and perhaps just focusing on the right-hand side of this diagram to begin with, there's the core Smart Infrastructure Index questions, that's 186 questions, and then a specific extension that we initially developed last year of 56 questions to look at digital twins in the context of the National Digital Twin Programme. All of the questions basically follow a yes, maybe no kind of response. And there's a kind of a hierarchical nature to questions. So depending on what you answer, that sort of routes you through to the next question in terms of indicators of maturity. Development, there was some development this year. The main objective for us this year was to open the opportunity to all members of the community. So that's the asset owner operator members, but in addition to this year, innovators and academics. It resulted in a little bit of adjustment to the questions, so you can kind of see an example there in terms of how the questions were adjusted slightly this year. But ultimately, the meanings of the questions have been kept the same to allow us to draw comparisons between those responses that we got in 2022 and new responses this year. So just looking at a timeline before diving into some of the results and key findings, we launched the index on week commencing the 4th of October. We ran that through to the 24th of November, and then during December we had that period of reviewing the results and the analysis. That's allowed us to publish the dashboard, which again, there'll be information on how you can request access to that on the call. Is by request rather than available generally. And the report, which I'm going to summarise in the next few slides, that whole report's available to all members of the community, has been published this morning. So diving into a few of the key results, welcome kind of questions on these via Slido. There's only so much I can kind of cover on this 9-minute slot. So there was 57 responses to the index in 2022, so up from 21 last year. Overall, actually, the maturity score for the community has decreased. So in 2020, the average score for the community was 37.3 out of a maximum of 100, and that decreased to 33.6. We're able to, because we obviously understand that relationship between the individuals completing the survey and the groups that they belong to within the DT Hub community, kind of look specifically at the asset owner operators. Although there was a slight decrease, that was much less. So that 37.1 relative to the 37.3 last year. Some key findings on these core questions. So the highest scoring category was asset management, and the lowest scoring category was asset performance. And the category that saw the biggest change between 2020 and 21 was customers that dropped by 10 points, so down from 47 to 37. The only category that increased was asset performance, and actually that increase wasn't significant, so only by 0.2, so to 25.4 this year. As I mentioned, obviously the digital twin extension is a specific set of questions looking at digital twins in the context of the National Digital Twin Programme, and the charts on the next few slides kind of drill into that in detail. So that kind of question set arranged around some key themes or subcategories, and the 2021 is in the sort of the greenish color, and the 2022 is in the purple color. So overall, you can see that decrease in score. So in 2020, the average score on those digital twin questions was 41.8, and that's decreased to 35.8 this year. Some key findings. So where we have seen some increases, so communication, data, design, and subcategories. The most notable decreases can actually be seen in alignment, approach, and technology. Interestingly, though, both approach and technology saw increases in scores this year for the asset owner operator group. So because we can kind of filter around that axis. So unlike these scores for the wider group, which suggests there might be some different perspectives and ways of working between the asset owner operators and the wider DT community. As I say, obviously, there's more detail in some of those changes and the ability to look at specific questions within those subcategories in the full report. This was very interesting. Although we had relatively small sample sizes both this year and last year, we did have some organisations that have completed the survey over both years, so we can look at what's been the change over time where we've kind of got that benchmark for an individual organisation. We've grouped those obviously all together, so this is looking at all organisations that completed last year and then all organisations that completed this year. So overall, this is actually an area where we see quite a marked increase, so an increase on the overall score from 37.5 to 53.1. Obviously, we've only got a few of our responses that kind of fall into these categories, so that's kind of within kind of the subset of all of the data where we are seeing those big increases. So that kind of indication that those have been on the journey for the longest are advancing. The most significant increase was in the build area, so it was quite a substantial increase, increased by 43 over that 12-month period. Other notable increases were around design, integrate, operate, and technology. Also, and I suppose this is where we've kind of got some kind of differences from the broader assessments of these subcategories. Actually, in this specific group of organisations where the survey was completed both years, we did see some drops in alignment, communication, outcomes, and people in this specific category of organisations that completed both years. So just drawing some conclusions and then looking at some of the key recommendations. There's reason to believe that despite that decrease in digital maturity score, the overall digital maturity of community member organisations has not necessarily dropped. So specifically looking at where we've got those organisations that have completed on both years, we can kind of see that big increase. There's sort of two key factors that lead to that conclusion. The first, obviously, is hopefully you'll have all recognised over the last 12 to 18 months, the demographic of the community's changed. You know, the community's grown, and likewise, the survey's been sent more broadly than just the asset owner operators, but also to innovators and academia. Particularly as the community's grown, and thinking perhaps where we were 18 months ago, it was far more likely 18 months ago that we'd got kind of leading organisations that were early adopters of digital and specifically digital twins. Obviously, by comparison, this isn't related to specifics, but by comparison, you know, as we're getting more new members joining the digital twin community, they're more likely to fall under that early majority category. So maybe earlier in their own journeys of adopting digital twins, and perhaps that's driving some of that overall score decrease. Last slide, and I'll hand over back to you, Simon. But the future areas of focus. So I think this echoes ultimately what the areas of focus have been over the last 12 months based on the report. But communication, particularly around digital and digital twins within organizations, so sort of how the messaging around digital twins is communicated within organizations, could vastly increase scores in several areas. Obviously, that slight drop this year around the kind of the customer element of digital transformation. So the opportunities to look at kind of priorities of customers and stakeholders, and also opportunities perhaps for the asset owner operator members to learn from the innovator community with respect to customer understanding, lessons for learning. Areas of focus around modern approach to supplier and vendor management. I think particularly innovation through sharing information and savings across the supply chain. Another echo from last year, but that measurement of digital competency levels, looking at how that can be used from a strategic planning perspective to understand the future digital environment and help organizations through that transformation. And then finally, I think this is one that certainly resonates with me. Obviously, that recommendation around learning from exploring failures, particularly kind of sharing case studies that don't excessively focus on success, so that both organizations and peers can sort of learn from those lessons as well as those successes. That's it from me, Simon. I hope I just kept into time there, but hand it back over to you.